Hi, my name is Sheran.
Hi, my name is Ben.
And this is the Creative Odyssey Podcast.
We're here to talk about the creative process.
The good,
the bad,
and the ugly.
But more importantly,
we're here to create together.
Whether you're a creator, a dreamer,
or just curious about the creative process,
explore with us
as we figure out what it means to be a creative
and build a community
that celebrates the creative journey. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Creative Odyssey Podcast, everyone. This is episode 9.
Yes, episode 9.
We're almost to 10, man. Almost double digits. This is crazy. You know, it's been a little while since it's just been you and me face to face, because we had our 2 episodes with guests, and the last one was so cool. It felt like 20 guests.
Right. I think we just missed this format as well, and so we want to keep that for sure, especially because this is the part where you and I get to really break down this process and learn how to apply that for ourselves.
Yeah. I feel like it's a learning moment for us every time we go through what we want to talk through.
Right.
And then obviously there's live realizations as you and I are talking. So definitely want to keep this up. So thanks for joining us again, everybody. We were so stoked with that jam. And I just love what Caleb had to say in the last episode with the artist versus artisan.
Yeah.
Such a great topic. And Caleb is he's so multifaceted. He's running the sound. He's a videographer, musical engineer, and we actually got the opportunity to go see one of his films that he helped with the 48-hour film project in Cleveland.
Absolutely. It was really cool. They had, I think, more than, I would say, 30 teams?
30 teams at least. Yeah, I think.
Who produce like short films within 48 hours.
Which I'm sure a lot of creatives are familiar with the 48-hour film festival. I know it's an international thing, which actually we just found out it was international. I thought it was just kind of local to the
This
States.
is too, actually.
Yeah.
So what happens is whoever gets picked out, they get sent to the international one.
The Cannes?
Yeah.
The Cannes Film Festival. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so they're all connected. So we're in Cleveland, and we were so proud to be there. You know, there were more than 200 creatives there.
Yeah. That was especially, I thought it was so powerful. So after the films were shown, everybody got together in one auditorium, and it was like a Q&A time for the teams. And I just felt, I don't know, as an observer, since we weren't actually talking or participated in the creation of the films, it was just such an energy to the room to be part of the 200 plus creatives that were just sitting there who had all worked on this. Just going in there and being a part of that was just so epic to me.
And the best part was the producers and directors of these and all sorts of facets of DPs and all of this. They were all wide variety of ages. It was a nice range of it. So there were college students to people in much older, and there were people with gray beards and white beards, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, that was the best thing about it, to see, you know, that almost gives us a glimpse of like us never giving up our creativity and continue to create even until the day we die. And it's, you know, that was pure beautiful, because we're on the right path. Because I saw something in that one of the older producers or directors, he had this joy in him. Like, he was a happy dude, the gray beard dude.
Yeah.
Like, he was so happy, and I realized, like, it's because he's creating.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it made me think. So I saw, like, the fresh out of college kids, I mean, maybe even still in college, who were part of different teams. And then, as you were mentioning, the older gentlemen that were there. As a fairly older gentleman myself, it really just inspired me. It's like, you know what? Why would I ever stop creating? And the other thing that I was like, you know what? Even if I don't feel like I am on a prosperous journey in my creativity, or feel like I'm I don't know, there's something about it like, even if I feel like I'm a failure right now, it's never too late to start, or it's never too late to keep going if you feel like maybe your past has failed or whatever. So
I want to correct real quick. If you're feeling like a failure, stop. It's not true.
Exactly. It's not true. Yep. Maybe something, maybe you messed something up in the past. That's okay.
No, yeah, 100%,
keep going.
for sure.
Keep going. And so, yeah, that was the big thing, that just seeing everybody there with the different age groups, it just got me so excited to be like, it's never too late to start creating. And I feel like creatives are never going to stop creating.
Yeah, seriously. Being in Cleveland now and seeing what's happening, it's almost like a renaissance of arts happening right now, and creativity happening in Cleveland, which excites me so much, because we are here because of that. We're here to encourage creatives and create community. So to see that and to be able to be there, feel the presence of all them creative people was freaking amazing. I love being in Cleveland at this time.
Yes, and shout out once again to Caleb for doing cool stuff like that.
Yeah,
being part of that.
Their team, the Gorlock, right?
That's right. The name of the film was Gorlock. It was like a sci-fi / horror genre.
And these guys got to record it in a Ari Alexa because one of the members he works at a camera rental shop. So it was so crisp. It was the lighting,
So
the music. Caleb did all the music for it. Oh man.
It was
so glad we
notch.
got to go.
If I think they're going to put it out on YouTube, and we could probably add that link to this.
Yes, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, but Ari Alexa, I don't even know the cost, but I know they're expensive and
That's not
they're
even
great.
go there. Yeah, so
Multiple tens of thousands. So, anyways, amazing.
enough to chat, Ben. Let's get to the point.
The point is, well, today's episode is about trusting new patterns as your best path forward.
Correct.
So let's back up a little bit, kind of just briefly touch on what we've covered in the past episodes. So first is like, are you a creative? Next, embracing that creative identity. And then the next one would be creative blocks. Mm-hmm. The common creative blocks, ways to get through that. We talked about the prototype way to get around creative blocks. And then we talked about changing. So if we're having a hard time creating, we want to try to make a prototype and just call it a prototype. It doesn't matter where you're at with it. That's what a prototype is, right? And then once you get through that, I found personally that change is difficult and uncomfortable.
Right.
And so that was, I feel like, the last episode that we had, you and I here. I think that was episode 5 or 6. So the next step in the process naturally is, okay, so we're getting through these changes. I think it's time to start trusting what you're doing. If you know that it's right, it's time to start trusting the new process that you're going through. So obviously everybody's heard of that phrase, trust the process, trust the process. And sometimes it's going to take a while for old patterns that you've grown up with or been so familiar with for so long to shift over, and it's going to feel weird, uncomfortable, as I mentioned before. But I think you got to keep pushing through it.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to trust the process if you don't accept the new path.
Very good. Yeah.
Right.
Very well put.
You could say a million times, trust the process, trust the process, trust the process. But what if you don't believe in where you're going or what you're trying to do? No matter how many times you try to trust the process, you're like, what process? To go where? What?
Yeah, so that definitely needs to be defined. You need to understand that this is something that is going to benefit you in the future, even if it's uncomfortable right now. So, yeah, very well put. You need to know and define what that is. I was listening to another podcast, and I can't remember the name of the actual guy, but he had the guest Sean Puri on.
Sean Puri, yeah.
And he was talking about change in general, and he mentioned an old Seinfeld episode that he had, I guess, fortuitously watched at a low point in his life. And it was about one of the characters. he was so fed up with where he was in life. I guess he felt very mediocre. I can't remember exactly who this was.
George Costanza's character.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. It wasn't Jerry. It was George Costanza.
Yeah.
He was so fed up with his mediocrity that he basically threw up his hands. He's like, from now on, I'm going to do the opposite of everything I do right now. So I can change. And sometimes it might need to be that drastic.
Yeah.
And from a personal reference, this is a little vulnerable here. I just spent the last couple weeks trying to recover from COVID.
Right.
And I'm still foggy and I'm still trying to get everything done. This studio was a mess. And I was listening to that episode, or I'd listened to it a couple days ago, and I was reminiscing on it. And I told Sheran that, hey, you know what? I don't think today's going to work to record the podcast. And I kind of decided on that. And then probably like 5 or 6 hours later, I was thinking about that. I'm like, what would the old Ben do? He would probably push that off for a little bit later, make sure he feels good and is ready to go. But what would be the opposite of that? That would be getting this done right here and now. And so that's why we're here.
Listen, guys, this is like 11:15 p.m. and we just started the podcast, right? I have never been proud of this man for calling me and saying, dude, I still want to do it. Like, I was like struggling so hard when you said no. Like, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is again, I really thought to myself, this is what the old Ben would do. And I was like, we have a decent relationship and we're still building it. So I don't want to like try to be controlling or whatever. And I have accepted, like, if there's a setback and we cannot record something, my creative right, or like the way I process is like, it's not supposed to happen. I'm going to be okay with it because I'm on a path to create. I have a mission from this podcast. We both have, and that will still continue even though the episode will get delayed. So that's how I reframe everything. Like, I do not allow any kind of like I'm allowed. Like, I allow myself to be upset. I might throw a fit or two, but after that, I'm like, okay. I reframe my thoughts, and I'm like, okay. There's no point being angry. There are valid reasons. So how can I accept this? So this is a little tangent, but this is kind of similar to what we're talking about in this episode. Yeah. So I'm super grateful that I sent Shanpuri's episode.
Yeah, actually,
not in that intention whatsoever.
Of course.
But I'm grateful it worked out because this is we're starting on a good note.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it just seeing your reaction when you told me about the episode when we were hanging out the other day, your face was just like, this is so good. I'm like, okay, this has to be, I got to listen to this. And usually, like, when people send me stuff, I'll listen to it eventually. And it'll take a couple weeks to finally get it in rotation or whatever. But I'm like, I'm going to put this on right now.
That's awesome.
So glad
So doing something different when you're in the regular mundane or you're stuck in a creative rut or whatever the case might be. So that's where you're at. That's super powerful. So I really want to think about that example of George Costanza in Seinfeld. My question is, the reason he was led to that point was he recognized the things that we were doing. So it started with him eating tuna salad every single day for lunch. Right, and I don't remember the circumstances, but he was like, "Oh, the server comes and she's like, tuna salad sandwich today," and like that reminded him, like, this is his life every single day. These are the same things, and nothing has changed in his life. And so the way we are talking about creativity is, you and I, we both know that we are creative, yet nothing is happening, or like, in a sense, nothing is being produced, nothing is flourishing, right? Like, creativity, like, anybody can play the song on piano or whatever, and if they don't grow and improve, they're never going to write a song.
They're going to play the same thing over and over again.
And eventually you're going to get sick of it, right? Like everybody plays Happy Birthday, but nobody wants to listen to it all the time. It's great that you listen to it, but like,
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of somebody like searching up on Spotify. Oh, dude, I want to listen to Happy Birthday song again.
right.
It's not going to happen.
So same thing applies to when you realize you're a creative, or when you know you're a creative, you know there's something within trying to come out, and like this urge to create, and you don't do it because of the same thought patterns, like you don't have the time, or this is silly, or whatever. So nothing ever changes.
Right.
But you have this potential and creativity within you that is waiting to ooze, because what's on the other side of the opposite is self-discovery, knowing, like learning that, like, oh my gosh, I'm creating, I can do that, and that whatever I created is sparking emotion. Like whatever that was healing inside me, that what I created is actually healing it. Like, you will never get to that point if you don't change the regular pattern of doing things. And if it's creativity, if you're not creating, there's a reason why that's not happening. It's because more often than not, you're following the same thought pattern. You might listen to a podcast and get inspiration, but yet you're following the same thought pattern, and nothing will go to the other side of the prototype because of you not changing the thought patterns that you have ingrained in yourself.
Yeah. And I think back to the George Costanza reference is you can think about doing something new, research doing something new. You can find a new song and get ready to practice the new song. But if you keep ordering that tuna sandwich, nothing's going to change. You got to take the action to make the change.
Right.
And the more you do that, the more likely you're to continue doing that.
Right.
So you keep building that new neural pathway in your brain that finally will become a habit. And so reinforcing these things, once you do something, so let's take, for example, me saying, okay, let's do this anyways. I'm not at tip-top shape, whatever, let's do it anyways.
Yeah.
That's the first step in my journey in being more, let's keep going. Let's keep pushing this harder, faster. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Right? So next time, it's going to be easier for me to say, no, of course, let's do it. I might have had a really stressful day, but let's just do it. Come on, let's keep going.
I think about the jam session we did in the last episode on YouTube. If you would have told me that I was going to do something like this with cool creative people where we recorded and get some really amazing audio and this beautiful creation, I would have been like, you're kidding me. But when the idea came, I was like, why don't I ask Caleb if he'd allow us to do it in an apartment? And then why don't we invite... It started with the question, why not? Why wouldn't we? Right? And nothing was stopping us except asking and be like, hey, Caleb, can we do it at your house? And he's like, yeah. And that turned into something. But the old Sheran would be like, well, I'm not that good in piano, and I'm not that good at improvising as much, and I don't want to be the one like holding everybody down and all of these things. I went there. Like I love my creative freedom, and I can talk about the reframing thing for a second here again. I live in freedom. Since the day we started this podcast, and since the day we have been analyzing creativity and what that means to me, and how I'm an artist and I'm a creative, I have truly accepted so much freedom in all of this, in to say, like, I don't care what people think of me. I don't even care what I think of me at this point. All I know is my creativity inside is saying, this could be so freaking awesome if I do it with these people. That's it. That's the only parameter I have. It must be fun and exciting for me to do. And I have to do it with people that are amazing, who has the same excitement. And I saw this reel the other day about this guy mentioning, we got to change the way we look at our jobs. See, if you're a creative, our job is the side hustle. The creative endeavor is our identity. The creativity, or listening to creativity and making something happen, or wanting to engage in more creativity, that's our identity.
That's our full-time job.
That's our full-time job.
And when you really think about it, the time that you spend at your whatever your job is that you make money at, whether that's 8 hours a day or less or more than that, it is largely a small percentage of your entire day. And the rest of that day is your full-time job of being creative.
Yeah.
I mean, you're obviously not going to do that during your sleep, but still.
Right.
I've had many inspirations during dreams that I've been sleeping, even then.
Yeah.
So anyways, all that to say, just reinforcing what you're saying about the full-time job there. It's the creativity is your full-time job. So start acting like that.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, well, I got to go to work today. I'm going to be too stressed. Well, I'm going to be too tired when I get home, so I'm not going to be able to do anything.
Right.
Reframe your mindset, man.
And I think, so once you accept that, right, that your job is a side hustle, then I look at all the excuses that we can come up with, tired, all these things that can get in the way, right? I still plan those times to do something like creative. I have multiple avenues: woodworking, video, music, anything I can think of. So I can schedule my day around these things. I will do these things. But the most important thing I do is I listen to my creativity. The reason I schedule these times is because it's a priority for me. So I know that my creativity must be massaged or whatever during these times.
Must be tended to. Yep.
So no matter how tired I am, I will find a way to be creative, one avenue or the other. Now that's number one. If you're not setting that time for your main thing, that this creativity thing you're trying to do, it's not going anywhere. It's never gonna happen. But once you do that, though, you have to listen to your creativity at that point. If I was supposed to do woodworking, but I'm now driven to make a song, I listen to the creativity and go make a song.
Ah, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true freedom.
True freedom.
Yeah, yeah, like you were saying, it's true freedom to be able to move from creative outlet to creative outlet, not letting specific ones stop you from being creative.
Right. And so the main thing you need to make sure happens is to be able to jump between the creativity or between the tasks or mediums and listen to creativity is you must be free to create. You must be kind to yourself. No more shame or disappointment. None of those things are part of this, because that's negative and that will only hinder your creativity as opposed to being free. So this is a process where my creativity right now is telling me to go create this, not the woodworking thing. Okay, cool. That's not me being a failure. That's me recognizing I'm a creative person. Listening to the voice or the creativity comes first. Everything else must adjust.
I love that point of being kind to your creativity. I feel like so many of us just see it as this thing that we move through, but looking at it as kind of a entity in and of itself, and that it can be much more free and open, and being kind to it and not beating yourself up over switching things or not finishing projects in certain, like you're saying, certain mediums or something like that. I love that. Being kind, not only to your creativity, but to yourself as well. Like if you stop or you feel like you're done, it's okay. It's okay. You can be okay. I know that I feel a lot of times, I think this is just, a trait in my family where there's this, oh, I got to be doing something. I got to be doing this now. Okay, I should be doing this now. Oh, well, I'm a creative. I should probably go find something to be creative in. But it's okay if that's not the exact time. And being kind to myself and being okay with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing. And not letting yourself down if you if you don't do something right then. And
Yeah,
there.
that must be like the standard when it comes to creating, in my opinion. Now, with that being said, it's important to think about this opposite mentality, right? Like it's this dichotomy of like, okay, I don't want to do this now because of blah 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 blah, and then evaluating, is this the old pattern, Ben, or is this actually a valid reason?
Yes.
This is why I want to make sure, like, it's being kind to yourself is the standard either way, but you have to make sure.
Yeah, because let's say you're trying to make some changes. It might be a process where you try something out, and it doesn't necessarily work as well as you were hoping.
Yeah.
There might be something that you work at for a while and it just doesn't get you there. So just make sure that when you're in that place, that you're giving yourself the freedom, being kind to yourself, and being okay with these changes that you're making. I think the hardest thing too is that because it can be so uncomfortable when you're making these changes, or you're going through something new that's unfamiliar, you might think that is wrong. So give yourself some time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, going back to the kindness, but give yourself some time, be kind to yourself, and you'll notice the change soon enough. And if that's something that you've decided that is the path that you want to take, you'll be on it soon enough and you'll get there.
Yeah, because the reason you're not kind to yourself in the moment is because your expectations weren't met.
Yeah.
So that means that your expectations define like your success in the creative process. If you ever think about that, like, we could talk about the concept between artist and artisan. Artisan is mostly focus is more about productivity and how quick you can make something and repeatability, right?
Right. Yep.
Artist,
Refining
it's different.
the workflow.
However, when you're in the creative process, usually what happens is we apply the same rules from the artisan concept and apply to the artist. And that's why I think what it's important to understand is to measure your success, it should be authenticity, not result driven. Does that make sense? So using authenticity as a metric to measure your creative success. So by how true your work feels to you rather than by external approval or perfection. This approach allows you more creative freedom, reduces self-censorship, and leads to like kind of fulfilling and genuine work for that, evolve naturally with you.
Okay. So
does that make sense?
Mostly. Can you define, like, I know what authenticity means, but I want you to break it down a little bit more in this sense. When you're being authentic and you're using that as a metric, I feel like authenticity is a word that can be thrown around so easily. But what does it mean to you? And how would you apply it here?
Very simple. To find authenticity, you got to go through all these processes that we've been talking about in our podcast. In the sense, you will never be able to create authentically if you do not allow yourself to freely create.
Okay, so it's more along the terms, or not more along the terms, but it's being raw.
It's being raw, but the problem is you can never be raw unless you allow yourself to.
Right, because there's so many. Yeah, okay.
That's why the whole concept of the reason why we've been saying figure out if you're a creative is because if not, at that point, you're just like literally pretending to be something you're not. Then you can never create from a raw place, except if you are, then it'll be absolute garbage because you're not a creative person. But my point is that's what authenticity is. And I realize that now to get to the point of authenticity, you can never get there without doing all this work and saying, I'm a creative. I'm allowing myself, I'm going to take my creativity seriously. I'm going to listen to my creativity. I'm going to follow it, all of that stuff. That's, through all of that, is how you get to authenticity or the rawness of creativity. And if you use that as a metric to create, to measure your creativity success, now there are no rules, no boundaries, except does this feel right? Does this feel good? Is this what I'm trying to say? Am I saying it without worrying about what people will say? Or am I breaking down societal barriers? Or maybe I should be like kind of like on the easy side or whatever. That's not that's not authenticity. Authenticity is like, forget about all of those things. Is this feeling right? This is a bad example. I don't think this is always. It's a good example, but I don't know if this is toxic or not. But when I used to be a chef, I took it so seriously that it didn't matter to me if somebody gave me a compliment. If it didn't matter to me if somebody gave me a compliment, especially if I didn't think I did a good job.
Wow. So somebody would come up to you and say, "Hey, great job," and you would would you say no internally?
Well, I would just like laugh at you because you don't know how bad this is.
Okay, so to the external world, it looked like you were doing good, but internally you felt like you were failing.
Yeah, because I had a high standard and I know what I could do with my creativity, and I know where I went wrong.
Okay.
That comes from a chef mentality of being in culinary school. Had a chef instructor who always said, no matter how good your food is, ask yourself, how can you improve it? And with that mindset, right?
Okay.
So that's, I don't know whether it's the right, that's why I said it's not a really good, like, it's healthy way of dealing with it, but I didn't, like, it's also a healthy way because I didn't care. My chef ability, my cooking ability didn't depend on the people's reviews. It depended on me. Did I get it right? Did I get the taste right? Do I like it?
Yeah.
Right?
I can see how that could lead you down a toxic path.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I mean, especially the perfectionism path. But I see what you're trying to say, too. Like, it can be good if you're trying to refine something and you've gone through 40 different prototypes or whatever. Right. It's good to be like, okay, so here I am. Yeah. What else can I do to make this better?
Correct.
Or I think the difference is that instead of saying, I'm not even going to acknowledge this, I just need to know how much it's better. I think the missed point is that I'm acknowledging that I did a really good job here. Now let's find out what I can do better. So be kind that you did well, right? And
so let me fight against that for a second. So the reason maybe I wasn't clear enough, but it could be looked at as perfection. But the way I'm saying is authentically, like, this is where I wanted to go with this. And I get that, like, because the goal wasn't for anybody to, whenever I cooked, the goal wasn't to please people.
Sure.
It was more, the way I looked at it was, I was a hospital chef, so every time I got a freedom to create for a catering or all of that stuff, that's when I got to do the creative juices stuff.
Okay.
I had more freedom. So when that happens, like, that's an actual creative endeavor for me. And so there is perfection hidden in there, no doubt about it. But for me, it was like, my goal was to make it taste like this. I understand you like it, but that wasn't my goal.
Gotcha.
I think that makes it more.
Yeah, the way that you had first described it, it sounded like it was like, what I just made is trash because I know it can be better. It's like, okay. I see what you're, and why you said that could be taken as a toxic way to do it. So yeah, I'm glad that we talked through that. But yeah, I totally see what you're saying because you were going for authenticity. You created something and it wasn't what you had originally thought about making. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But you have a vision.
Yeah.
And that vision was a certain taste,
Right.
and that wasn't reached in whatever iteration you were at.
Exactly. So going back to authenticity is like now everything makes sense. Even in filmmaking, they talk about what's your voice and what kind of style that you're gonna have. It'll never come if you don't freely allow yourself to create.
Yeah.
The more you do that, eventually that light bulb moments come like, oh, this is how I want to bring out my filmmaking. This is my style. But I think often than not, people just worry about figuring that out and never put anything out.
Yeah, and I bet you a lot of people will confuse, maybe not necessarily confuse, but think that authenticity is originality. And that's not true. Because there are so many people who create the same way that have not like seen each other's work.
Yeah.
And they're being their raw creative self, and it could be a very similar outcome. There has been so much created for so long.
Yeah.
It's hard to be or find anything original.
Right.
So I think that needs to be said, that originality doesn't mean that you're, being authentic doesn't mean that you have to be original and that you created something brand new that nobody has or done in a new way. Be yourself, be authentic to who you are and what your vision is. And if it happens to be like something else that somebody already created, if you happen to pull a lot of inspiration from other things, that's totally fine.
That's going to happen for sure. And it's just continue on that journey to eventually find it. That's the cool thing about it. It's like all these years, I look at my life and I've been reflecting a lot these last 2 years. And what I've learned is I never was given a chance to accept my creativity. I'm different, and I had to fit into society's non-creative society's method for non-creatives, right? And finally, I'm at a point I'm realizing I'm many things, but more importantly, I'm a creative, and I'm going to take my creativity seriously, regardless of how people see me or whether they take my creativity seriously or not. Because it's not about that. It's about me feeling true to who I am, and that I'm a creative, and I'm going to take extra measures to make sure I know that, and I allow myself to create.
Yeah, I love that.
So, Ben, you know what? We talked decent amount of concepts. So, what does it look like in real life? To do this, to do what we talked about?
I think that a good thing to do is to constantly check in on yourself.
Okay.
So maybe not constantly as in like every 30 seconds see what you're doing. But as a creative, when you start down the path of creating, wherever you end up, it's good to do a check at the beginning to see where you're trying to go. And then possibly, I don't know, you might not know halfway through, but sometime as you're going through, you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know, like, okay, I need to do a quick check. And what that means is like checking in on yourself, where you're at emotionally, where you're at in the creative process, see what you actually think you need to do based on your initial vision, right? You and I were talking earlier about it might not be as good to do it an after check.
Yeah.
Because you won't be able to apply it until the next time.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a debrief or a wrap of like, what did I learn? Where did I go? Whatever.
Yeah.
But the application can't be immediately applied again because you got to wait till next time. So this time it's good to do a pre and then like a mid check or something like that. Am I being supportive of myself as I create?
Yeah.
It's so easy to just start going.
Yeah.
And the natural inclination could be to beat yourself up, or it could be to easily get frustrated at things that aren't going your way as you're making things. And I actually have kind of an example to put that out there. As I'm creating a song, I'll be using a bunch of different sounds, different tracks, whether it's drums and pads or whatever. Specifically, I'll be looking for a sound, and I've been looking and looking and looking.
Right.
I've gone through 100 different sounds, and I'm starting to get really frustrated. And it would be easy for me to get frustrated and quit, but being kind to my creativity means that I shouldn't give up on it right now, right? I'm in the creative zone, and yeah, maybe I'm getting frustrated. Do a self-check. I can see, okay, here you are. You're frustrated being creative. Why? What is it? Okay, you've gone through 100 different sounds. The easy way out, and what I so many people do will be like, well, I'll just stop right now and come back later.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, but you want to be kind to your creativity, and you want to let that flow. You want to be authentic, and you want to be raw. So cutting it off right then and there might not be the best option.
Yeah.
So pushing through, for me, that would mean, okay, I've gone through 100 sounds. I'm not going to be on my computer anymore. I'm going to move to the piano because I really feel some type of song is going to come out. So now I'll start playing what I was just making on the computer on the piano. I know it's not, but now I get to flow. I get to have that creative flow more. And this could mean for something else, maybe completely switching gears and going to a different outlet of creativity, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the point is checking in on yourself while you're creating so you can continue creating until that creative flow finally finishes.
Because the creativity is the goal.
Right.
Continuing that and prolonging that. And because the reason creativity gave you a prompt to go and do something, that's the goal. And what happens is the daily check-in. The check-in is pretty much being aware of what's happening.
Right? Yeah, you don't have to sit down and write down a bunch of stuff. I mean,
exactly.
you can.
It's just understanding. Like, it's easy for me right now to just drop this off and come back later because for many reasons, plenty valid. But can I do something different? Can I challenge with a different route to this? Like, I know creativity gave me this, but also my creativity is powerful. So am I able to try something different and see if I'm able to even be flexible?
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole
right
other
there.
conversation. Being flexible, pushing your boundaries, challenging yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Because one of the things that stood out to me was and when we had Caleb in the podcast was he said part of jamming was the synchronicity of everybody, but also the clashes.
True.
He mentioned that blew my mind. Like the whole concept was not this perfect thing that we were trying to create. If you really listen to it, you can hear the dissonance. You can hear the little bumping here and there, minimal, but yet it was there.
I might say shockingly minimal, but still,
it's still there, and I never thought about that as being beauty in the imperfections because we were not trying to create a perfect. We were trying to be creative, and regardless of how it comes out, what's important is we got together and jammed, and we made something beautiful. So it's that creativity is the primary force, and that's what we care about. Doing that more is the goal. Stopping because I don't have the right instrument or whatever might limit the creativity.
Yeah.
To say, my creativity is powerful enough for me to say, if I give the chance, I could probably go a different route and make this song better.
Yeah. Yeah. And creating from a place of curiosity as well. So in that same thing, what could I do differently? Viewing each project as kind of like a question or exploration, rather than something that is set in stone. It's like, okay, like I usually do. I'll come here, but I know I'm going to make a song. I know it's going to be 5 tracks or whatever. I know that I want these certain things. I could be completely curious and see, well, what would happen if I did this? What would happen if I started creating something that I never have? I actually last week sat down and started drawing. I haven't drawn in
That's cool.
forever.
Yeah.
But it felt very, I don't know, it felt rejuvenating. I didn't do too much, but it was still like rejuvenating. It's like, this is a different creative outlet. But what I'm trying to say is sometimes it's so cool to see where your creativity will take you if you do something so wildly different. So George Costanza, now I'm going to do the opposite of what I would normally do in this situation. So I guess kind of understanding what that means yourself, what it means to be curious in your creativity and exploring that.
And the final thing is, you're creative, and more often than not, this creative process looks like a mess.
Yeah.
And usually that's the norm. I think there needs to be a certain amount of willingness to accept that it could be messy, it might look messy, it might smell messy, whatever, right? As you continue this process of understanding freedom in creativity, I feel like it's gonna get less messier up here. Maybe physically the desk might be messy or whatever, but here it becomes clear. Oh, that rhymed. And
Nice job.
You know what I mean? It physically might look messy, and allow that to be the case. Don't worry about some people want to be clean, that's fine, but our goal is to clear here and just create and listen to that the voice or whatever, the excitement. If you do that, that's going to happen. So we've talked a lot about this, and I'm really curious, you guys. I want to call it riding the wave, like the wave of creativity. Tell us how that works. How did you come to the point of realizing, oh, this is creativity and I need to ride it out, or ride the wave, or vice versa? How that process works? We would love to hear, your thoughts about that, and talk more about it, and maybe your own coping mechanisms or own reframing ways of navigating the creative process and how you accept it and all of that stuff.
Yeah. And really just kind of to sum everything up, the whole thing about trusting the rhythms and the patterns that you're going to go through while you're making the change, even, that's what you want to do, is trust that even if it feels uncomfortable or unconventional or different or something like that. So new patterns can be good. New patterns can be uncomfortable. New patterns can take a long time to adopt.
Right.
But if we're trusting, if we're trusting that that's what we need to do to become a better person in our creativity. And
a freer person.
Right. And I want to make that distinguishing point clear here. Be a better person in your creativity. I'm not saying be a better creative, because you're perfect. Your creativity is perfect as it is. It's you approaching your creativity. I think that's a big thing.
Right, because you are the one putting the boundaries. You are the one putting the disappointment. You are the one putting the shame in there. Nobody else. And even if they did, it should not matter, because you listen to your creativity and you're the only one who can do that.
Yeah.
Unless other people believe in whatever your creativity tells you to, you're the only one who has control for that, and you're the only one who can listen to that.
Yeah. So, well, just one thing, we can challenge our listeners.
Yes.
To identify a new pattern, or at least try to think of a new one that could push them forward a little bit. Identify a new pattern. Put it in the comment section. And then if you're really bold, commit to that pattern and let us know how it goes.
Yeah, tell us what the opposite thing you did. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, this is the action portion.
Yeah.
I feel like not enough people make that
Right.
switch to action. They talk about it. We talk a lot.
Yeah.
But it's that action. It's that action step. So what is that new pattern that you could do to start trusting in and becoming better with your creativity?
Absolutely. I think First of all, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. The Creative Odyssey Podcast, it's been a journey. I want to sit here and just like celebrate the wins for a second. We've been listening to over 14 countries now. 14 countries now. And
wild.
Yeah, and I don't know, our channels are growing, and more importantly, we're finding our people. We're finding, and especially us in Cleveland, we're finding our creatives in Cleveland. We're going out there and we're networking, and we're finding that they're just like us, and they're creative people who just wants to create more with others and things like that. So, thank you so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to be doing this with you guys. But until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep exploring your own creative odyssey.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
See you next time.